We are officially in on a Friday for my IG Live, The Actor Overcomes. Today's set topic is, what about theater? Well, yeah, what about it, man? This originated back in the day for me, especially in Hollywood, but again, as I always continue to share with you guys, in today's transcendent Hollywood, which is any literal, legitimate marketplace in the world, Paris, London, Melbourne, Sydney, it does not matter. Wouldn't matter if it was Seoul, South Korea. The bottom line is that this comes down to a certain degree of focus and a certain degree of desire. Hopefully both of which go somewhat hand in hand. Yes, we all naturally start out typically, not always, but mostly start out with doing theater as performers. I get it. I understand it. It wasn't necessarily how I started performing, but I certainly have done it. Way back in the day, probably in the mid-90s, I'd say, maybe late 90s, I began a topical discussion at the Actors Network called Addicted to Theater. Now, I did the title on purpose, and it used to piss some people off, especially those, theater thespians that were, that would get cranky. But I wasn't trying to piss anybody off. That wasn't the point. The point is that, as it is with anything in life, when we don't give due consideration to the reality of what something is, then it's very plausible that we're liable to have one of two things occur, which is always depressing for me. One is frustration and anger, or the other one is disappointment, which can lead to the first one. And neither of those things are particularly efficient for us in our lives as people. They're certainly not efficient in our lives as actors. And that's my concern almost all the time, is your mental disposition about wanting to make money as a performer. And so you have to keep stuff in mind. And so I just simply went down the road way back in the day, and I didn't do it on purpose to piss anybody off. But what I saw a lot of, and what I know exists everywhere, is this not addiction to performing, but addiction to theater in a particular way that I am going to discuss today for the next 8 minutes. Oh my goodness. Wow, we got Ireland in, and now we have the fantastic Mr. Philip Boyd. Good to see you, brother. I hope things are great. Looks like you're doing well. I just had to withdraw from my club championship because of a bad ankle. Very sad. Back to what about theater? So while I certainly understand for everybody involved, no matter who sees this, no matter when you see it, no matter where you live in the world as an actor or in the United States, clearly the concept of doing theater, and whether it has a positive or negative impact on your career, is going to come down to a certain degree of your marketplace. Because nobody ever forget, I started my career officially in Atlanta. Now, that was Atlanta back then, not Atlanta today. But nonetheless, some of you may be actors in places where there isn't a ton of film and television or commercial work. And doing theater on a regular basis or fairly regular basis would be considered incredibly normal and just simply part of being an actor in that marketplace. Okay, that's cool. I've addressed that now for you. That's still what I'm going to say for the rest of this IG Live. Still applies to you. It just applies a little differently because there are less other opportunities or less other reasons why you would be looking to use a headshot to make money at performing. But in much larger markets, this is where this conundrum sort of really falls into play. Why? Because doing live theater, once again, whether you're part of a theater company and it's something that's just you're in a rotation on, whether you're choosing to try and create a one-person show, doesn't matter to me, or you have just chosen to submit yourself and go audition for a play that has come across your lap and you want to go do it. And the most important thing I want to say to everybody today is, look, even though I am obviously I have spent most of my life and most of my career being someone who's in front of a camera, please understand, I did improv with an improv company when I first came to LA. I did stand-up for 2 years, and I also have done several plays. So I have seen this movie in terms of live performance on stage. I'm not in any way, shape, form, or fashion. My joke about being addicted to theater is not in any way meant to be denigrating of theater at all. Never, ever, ever, no chance. What's up, Tony Boldy? What's happening, my bruh? That is not the purpose of it. My purpose of it is for you to check yourself, to always be checking your focus and goals. If I've made any one main mistake in my life and career, it's not trying to be the jack of all trades and master of none, but it was learning how to be very, very clear on when to say no. And I've already covered how to say no in my other IG live, so you can go to YouTube and you can go watch that one in the back and subscribe to the channel. But a lot of what I discuss about what about theater comes down to saying no. And so with regards to that, my question to you that I want you to ask yourself becomes why? Why am I submitting myself? Why am I reaching out? Why am I trying to put myself in the position of doing theater? Once again, just because I asked the question doesn't make it bad. Everyone should understand the irony of doing this topic right now is there's a play that's about to open at the Geffen Theater in Los Angeles, which is one of the best places for an actor to perform, especially a professional level actor. And I happen to know the casting director there and have because she's been there for years. She actually reached out to me to audition for the play, which I would have happily done if I were not leaving the country in 2 days for the next 3 weeks. I couldn't be here for the run of the show and some of the rehearsal. So I had to pass on it. But be clear, I would have been more than happy to go read and get hired to work on the Geffen stage. So nothing I'm about to say for the next 22 minutes has anything to do with putting down the idea of doing theater. It does everything to do with somebody who claims that they want to pursue and make money at film and television, but never has the time to really pursue that. I'm not talking about breathing with a headshot. Remember, I'm never talking about that. Go back and watch my first IG Live. Pursuit versus setup. Sitting around just waiting for a representative to call, sitting around waiting for your picture or resume to do something for you is setup time. It's not pursuit time. But I've heard actors my entire career for 3+ decades tell me that between life and side jobs, etc., they don't have time to really pursue their career. But suddenly you have time to go into a 3 to 6 week rehearsal process and a 4 to 8 week theater run that takes immense amount more time than pursuing film and television work for money or commercial work for money. But you don't have time to pursue that. So again, this is not about right and wrong. This is about me bringing it up so that you have something to reference, so that you can always check yourself on what it is you want to do. Because if you want pure artistic thespian desire to go perform theater, then for the love of God, please do. But that is my question. We ask ourselves questions all the times regarding preparing for our material. What does this character want? Why is this character doing or saying this? Well, I'm doing the same thing. Why are you wanting to do theater? It's always about the why. Because if it's for the pure art, if it's a part you've always wanted to play, and one of the reasons I've done some of it is because if it's a part you never get to play in film and television, which is one of my driving factors for choosing to do some characters on stage that I did. If that's the reason, that's awesome. Well, full stop. Here it comes. Here comes the first second monster point in today's IG. But do you have in the back of your mind someplace that doing this piece of theater could change the upward mobility of your career as it pertains to film and television? That's the conundrum I'm placing you in right now. Now, in smaller cities, in smaller marketplaces, I believe there's a higher likelihood that that's possible if there's not a lot of other film or television or commercial production in town, so that the powers that be in that particular city, be them commercial, director, producers, theatrical, film and television, or just the representatives that are in your marketplace. If they don't have a lot of other outlets to learn about your skill set or see performers in that city, then maybe doing live theater is something you would do a little more often, because there are actually people that are going to sit in the audience and see you who could affect your career for film, television, and commercials. But, and this is the whole core of this conversation, and this is why I just said what I have to say. In a city like Los Angeles, in a city like New York, commonly even in a city like Chicago, where theater is probably the most respected city for theater, almost next to New York, anywhere in the country, but yet still a little bit smaller town. Unless you know, unless you believe, or unless you can guarantee yourself that the people you want to see your work that are related to film and television commercials are going to come out and see that theater production that you're in my opinion, just my opinion, you cannot go do that theater piece in hopes that it's going to positively affect your film and television commercial career. You can do it for the love, you can do it for the art, hell, you can even do it for the money, because I'm all about that. But what I'm talking about is, wow, the infamous and famous Will Roberts has joined us, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you, brother, on a Friday. My concern, what I witnessed so much of for almost 3 decades in Los Angeles, were actors who wanted to make headway in film and television and commercials, and they spent a lot of time, 2 or 3 productions a year, which would literally be more than half their year. They spent all that time, all that focus, all that emotional with this little thing chirping in the back of their brain, because I still believe in a place called hope. That somebody who cast in Hollywood for something was going to drive all the way to Pasadena. For those of you who don't know Los Angeles, on a bad day that could be an hour's drive. On a lucky day, if you were close by, it'd be 30 minutes. And that they were going to come out and see that show and see their work. That does not mean I don't love the concept of doing theater at all. I'm sharing with you that if you're looking at this from a business perspective and not just a pure art perspective, you have got to consider, please, for your own self, you have got to consider the realities of what percentage of people in your marketplace are going to actually come see your work. That has to be a legitimate question that you ask. And here's my thing. Once again, if you don't care, awesome. I freaking love it. Cool. But I didn't see that. What I saw a lot of, and again, you have to remember that in the Actors Network for almost 24 years, we chatted every month in groups, and I facilitated almost all of them for the first entire 7 years of the Actors Network. And what I heard a lot of is I really wanted to do the show. Yeah, I always really wanted to do this play, but I sent out like 300 postcards and nobody came to see me. That's what I heard. And what I heard underneath that, and what I saw underneath that, was a lot of depression, a lot of frustration, a lot of mental anguish, a lot of sadness, a lot of people wanting to move away from being an actor in Hollywood because someone didn't come see their show. And that's what this conversation today is about. It's about undue, unfair, or illogical expectation based on the medium we're discussing, which is theater. There's nothing wrong with theater. In the Alliance in Atlanta, or a place, all my friends that live in Atlanta that do stage, guys, I got nothing against it. My buddy Wayne, who was on Broadway in 1984, or off Broadway, or off Broadway. My good friend Tom O'Keefe, who works all the time with a tremendous theater company in New York and also mixes in some film and television. Guys, this is not about right or wrong. This is not about what you should or shouldn't do. This is about the sheer reality, just sheer reality of, if you're going to put the kind of time, yeah, gotta love the process, man. Yeah, you missed the first part, Will, when I talked about loving it. The sheer reality of the amount of time and the amount of effort and what it takes out of us. You know, we always say, post-performance depression syndrome. It's a different kind of PPDS, right? This is the same thing. If you're in a place where it's really sketchy and illogical, and or just the percentages are low, that the legitimate folks in your marketplace who do film, television, commercial are probably going to be able to come out and see that show, or would come out and see that show, or make coming out to see that show a regular part of their life, like some casting people in Hollywood do, or some representatives in Hollywood do. If it's not very likely, then all I'm asking you in this IG Live is, don't forget that. Garner, calm, temper your expectation of marketing professional results based on the medium and the place in which you're choosing to do it. Which is why, going back, Theater West, I mean, it's great place, man. I was a member of Theater East. It's how I know the person who founded Dances with Films, the film festival. So there's nothing wrong with it, guys, but this is where I get down to the art versus the business. That's why I had a topical discussion on it. There's a chapter in my book, that book, the one that's right behind me, right there. This is why I've always had this conversation. This is not about whether you should or shouldn't do theater to call yourself an actor, or whether or not you validate yourself. That's the word. Man, if you want to go do theater, if you love doing theater, and you want to go do it, man, I'm all for it. But Maria, you're right. It's 3 months of your life, man. I'm all for it. But be careful about what you expect to come back your way from doing it, other than just the choice and loving to do it. And if you believe that you should promote it, and it's a really good show, and you want to at least utilize, which I'm a big fan of, getting marketing materials out, or just simply, as I call them, announcements. That's all it is. You're just announcing you're in a show. I'm all for you announcing that you're in a freaking show, of course. There's a difference in mailing something to announce something and mailing something with the hope somebody will respond. Those are two different things. I've been barking this statement for 30 years to this community. If you can put something in the mail or put something out on social media about something that you're doing just to make a particular professional or portion of professional community aware of what you're doing, that's awesome. That's part of our job. But if you do it with this tiny little place back here of what may come, and you allow that what may, see, I can do what may come without it depressing me when they don't. I've compartmentalized that 3+ decades ago. And that's what this is about. It's about being able to emotionally and mentally compartmentalize that you do not expect somebody who has an interest in film, television, and commercials as a representative or as a casting person thinking that they're going to make a drive someplace to go see a live show. In your marketplace, they might. But in Hollywood, it's incredibly uncommon unless you know that person personally. It's just hard to get people out. They put in a long day. Los Angeles traffic is hell, just like Atlanta's is on the 285, or just like New York's is in Chicago. But in New York, Chicago, you have train system, which is easier. In all of Europe, you have a train system. Places like London, theater is almost put above film and television sometimes. So again, you just have to take into consideration your geographics. San Francisco, Dallas, Miami, Minneapolis. I don't care where you're discussing. I'm only trying to drive home the point. If you want to be a part of a theater company because that helps you stay connected in your life, even if you have a day job, to your artistic nature, then do it, man. If you need to do one production a year because that makes you feel solid and keeps, get on the boards and it makes you do more than what you might be doing in class and it keeps you alive as an actor, then do it, man. I'm not against. I would have done this show at the Geffen if they would have hired me if I wasn't going out of the country. I'd be happy to go perform on that stage. It's freaking awesome in Los Angeles and West LA. I was depressed that I had to email my friend who cast it and say, I can't even audition. I'm not going to be here for the show. It killed me to have to do that. So this is not about whether or not I believe in doing theater. It's about you, us, a community of artists and dreamers and of a sensitive nature, not placing some sort of mentality of expectation onto a medium related to a set of different mediums and where the people don't have the same focus. That's all it's about. And I do want to say this. I know that sometimes we can do productions, and part of the pitch that the production will make to you is that they're going to record it. Okay, look, I literally, you got to remember, I've been talking about this for over 3 decades. So back in the day, when everything was linear and analog, this was a slightly different conversation than what it is today. However, the conversation still applies. Today, if you own an iPhone 13 or something similar to that from an Android, the lenses that we have in our cameras today are 10 times better than the ones we had back in the late 90s that were literally a camera. So when someone talks about recording the production, just understand, if you were ever able to utilize from a video demo standpoint of something that's a piece of theater, that person who's ever recording this better be sitting still, i.e. a tripod, and it better be exceptionally close-up coverage, and the sound better be awesome. Because as I say to people all the time, if you're putting something on your demo reel and it was done as a live performance of any kind, it still is beholden to what I call CPS, Contemporary Professional Standards. And that means it needs to be broadcast quality. So while I appreciate, listen, hey, recording shit for the grandkids, as I like to say, I've been saying it for decades, man. You know, sometimes just some shit we do is for the grandkids. That's cool. Grandkids are fine. But if you actually want to take a piece of theater and actually put that in your demo reel with something that might be from a independent feature film or 3 lines on a TV show that was on a network or a streaming service that's broadcast quality, man, sorry, but the lighting and the sound and being able to see you on stage, depending on how far back the proscenium is and downstage center, I mean, y'all, seriously, you have to understand who your viewing audience is. So be careful about anticipating and expecting something to be something it may not be, but you're better off if the show's over getting your actors together and shooting. Say, yeah, that too, Will. Again, this comes from a man who has spent more time in the last 2 decades arming himself both professionally and also studio-wise with more bells and whistles and knowing how to use them than anyone I know. However, Will, this is kind of important in that you kind of make my point by saying that about live theater that I continually make about people who always feel the need to have an idea and have to go shoot literally an entire short film or shoot an entire feature just to shoot a couple of really brilliant scenes with tremendous broadcast quality for your demo reel. So doing this outside of the theater scope but using that piece of material kind of makes the same point. And I'm with you on it because it's just extraordinarily hard to get an actual recording in a decent sized live theater that winds up being something from camera movement, camera shot, sound and lighting that can really mix in to an actor's professional demo reel. But just be aware of it. So again, and here's one of the last 2 things that I want to say on this subject before I have to go today. I'm saying this with you. I'm not saying this at you. I know that sometimes for a lot of us, the lack of being able to perform, even outside of class, is something we just yearn to do. Well, if you yearn to do it, once again, it goes back to love. It goes back to pure desire. Even if you pure desire it, even if you truly want to love to do it, also make sure that aside from tempering your expectations from a film, television, commercial response value, return on investment of time concept, also make sure that your lifestyle allows you to actually do this with some degree of comfort. Again, I can't know everybody's scenario. Boyfriends, girlfriends, spouses, employers, I can't know your scenario. But when you discuss theater, you have the professional return of that, but you also have the life return of that. And if you're in a place in your life where trying to get to rehearsal, trying to actually prepare to learn all of the lines you have to learn, etc., is burdensome even just to your lifestyle then I think you have to question it. Because your fellow performers don't want somebody showing up because it's such a collective to do a piece of theater. They don't want somebody who shows up haggard, tired, even if you're off book. That's not going to be healthy for the production as a whole. So make sure you temper professional expectations, but also make sure that if you choose to go audition for a piece of theater that you likely might get, understand your lifestyle needs to also, pencil and ear, mesh with that being a part of your life, just like anything. Okay, because that's a huge part of this. Is the last thing that I want to see somebody go through after doing something that, again, as we all smile, we tend to wind up making a new family of friends, even if they're in that sort of theater little pod bubble for the rest of our lives of we all did that thing together. Kind of like high school, only different, like the Big Chill, only a theater metaphor. Let's get the band back together. There's always having done a show together that sort of binds that set of people. I did a show way back in 1990, and it may have even flowed into 91. And the guy who was the lead actor in it, and I had quite a funny part in it, but he was clearly the lead. I didn't see him for like 20-some years after that, and I ran into him at a party. And all we did the rest of the time was just talk about how fun doing that show was, because that's what we do when we're a part of that brief family. It's like going to band camp or some shit. It's the same thing. It becomes an intrinsic, fabric, cathartic part of the rest of your life. So, I just want to make sure that if you choose to do theater, whenever you choose to do it, that you really are allowing in your life for the entire artistic space to love it, love the role, do the work, be engaging for those to be around, and just be careful about the expectation you may or may not have in terms of what may come from it professionally as leverage, momentum, or heat that would assist you in the film and television commercial on camera world of your life, depending on your environment and location. Okay, guys, that's going to wrap up today's IG Live, The Actor Overcomes, What About Theater? Please know I'll be back in 90 minutes at 2 o'clock PST to do 30 minutes of showbiz scenarios. Ask me anything. So if you got people who can be here, or people who have issues and things going on as an actor, man, tell them to come to the Kevin E at 2 o'clock and let's get some stuff done. Thanks y'all for being here, and I'll see some of you guys real soon. Okay, bye-bye.